Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Sons of Oklahoma. We got a good one here for you today. This is for all you soon-to-be or new gun owners out there. Thought I'd go over today different types of firearms that you'll be coming across if and when you decide it's time to buy your first gun. Or maybe you've already bought your first gun and you're looking for something for the kiddos even. So stick around and I'll tell you all about my first gun and what I think are some good choices for your first. Stick around, guys. Alright, real quick, as always, as we begin this video, all these weapons have been safety checked. All of them are unloaded. Each and every one of them will be going over today. Alright. I got my first gun when I was about 9 years old. It wasn't this exact gun, but it was just like this one. This is a Savage Model 6A semi-automatic 22 bolt-action rifle. This is also called the Gill gun. My dad got it for me and he kept it under his mattress for a long time, and it was pretty rusted and messed up, kind of like this one was when I first got it, but I've since restored this to the best of my ability. All things considered, in the shape this rifle was in, I think I did a pretty good job. On this side here, it was so damaged, and there was like even moss right there in that shiny spot. Maybe we'll do a full review over it one day. But this is a great beginner gun here. It holds 15 rounds of 22 long rifle. You can even fire this gun semi-automatic or bolt, either one, using your 22 shorts. The cool thing is it's got this little button right here. This charging handle works as a pin that goes through the other side, and it can lock your bolt back. Or when you push it forward, let's say you wanted to run 22 shorts on it, you can push this in, locking the action, fire your shot, and then unbreech it and manually work the bolt to fire your next round. Pretty cool feature all in all. But yeah, I'd say that this would make somebody a great first rifle to begin with if you can find one. They don't make them quite like this anymore. Great starting weapon for a child too, in 22 long rifle. Alright, let's move on to something a little bit bigger. Moving on to the shotgun side of things, this is my Mossberg 500. This is a 12 gauge pump action shotgun, also known as a slide action. It's capable of holding a 5 round capacity inside of its tubular magazine, just like our 22. But 12 gauge probably isn't something someone wants to start out with, especially in this configuration with the Shockwave grip. I learned that the hard way the other day, that this thing really shoots better with a stock on it. I'll say that much. But if you wanted to start out for something good for home defense, a 12 gauge really can't be beat for that. Although you do have to get used to the recoil. So as a beginner gun, maybe you want to step down to maybe a 20 gauge or a 410 gauge shotgun. A lot of power, just not as much recoil in them. But I will say with the 12 gauge, you do get a slight advantage because you're able to fire a multiple choice of buckshot, birdshot, slugs, beanbag rounds, different projectiles. That's a pretty good choice for a home defense gun. Alright, let's move into something a little bit smaller, like handguns. Okay, here we go, guys. Choosing your first handgun. Now, it's always a big dilemma which one you should choose, being a semi-automatic or a revolver. Now, both of these guns here are chambered in 22 long rifle, and the revolver also happens to be chambered in 22 Magnum and short. Now, both guns have pros and cons to them. Let's say, for example, we'll start it out with the semi-auto for now. We'll come to the revolver in just a minute. Now, revolvers can be found in a multitude of calibers, sizes, and different actions as well. For example, this gun here has a feature on it known as a decocker. Pretty cool. But this is a double action, single action firearm. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, if you're a new gun owner, let me explain a little bit more about it. Our weapon's on safe and we are empty. Double action means that if you were to pull the trigger on this gun, oh yeah, one moment, almost forgot. This guy has a magazine disconnect, which means pulling our trigger on our gun right now will do pretty much nothing. It has a safety that will not allow it to fire without the magazine being in the gun. Remember though, we are empty. Okay. Double action. It means it performs two different functions. I'm not only pulling the trigger, but I'm also cocking the hammer and getting it into the falling position. And once we reach the final phase of our trigger's travel, our hammer will fall. This allows you to fire the gun without pulling the hammer back. But our first shot is only in double action. When the weapon fires, the side will cycle back and cock our hammer for us, putting us in the single action. Single action means we simply pull the trigger just a little bit and the hammer will fall, being that it's already cocked back. But when we cock our hammer back, you'll notice that our trigger comes back a little bit, taking some of the poundage away from the trigger pull. This allows you to take a more accurate shot. Now that is one of the advantages that a semi-automatic has over a revolver, is capacity. This holds a 10-round magazine compared to this revolver's 6-round cylinder. Both of these guns are chambered in the same caliber, 22. However, there are drawbacks to having a semi-automatic handgun. For example, one of the things that can occur is what's known as a stovepipe. Now, a stovepipe occurs when your action here cycles back, but your round doesn't fully leave the chamber. Your round will, empty case I should say, will get caught up in between the barrel and the slide here, causing a malfunction, not allowing the weapon to fire again until the malfunction is cleared. One of the drawbacks to having a semi-automatic handgun, or rifle really. That can happen to both. Okay, let's move on to the revolver. Get this out of the way here. Okay, that brings us to the revolver. Now, revolvers come in both double and single action, the same way our pistol does. This particular revolver is a single action revolver, which means, as before, in order for the hammer to do, or the trigger to do anything, our hammer has to come all the way back to full cock. And pulling the trigger will drop our hammer, single action firing the weapon. One of the downsides to having a revolver is its limited capacity. In most revolvers, they come in either 5 or 6 rounds in chambering. Certain 22s can be as high as 8, 9, or sometimes even 10. However, the revolver can be a little bit more reliable than the semi-automatic. You don't have the problem of the ammunition not feeding correctly or a stovepipe occurring because there's no slide for that to happen in. So you will get more reliability out of a revolver. The downside to that is you won't have as much capacity. And I guess that's going to go ahead and bring us to the whole caliber debate thing. Now, both these guns, like I said, are chambered in 22 caliber. This is a very small round. Very fast, though, but very small. Most people out there will tell you that you don't want to start with anything less than a 380 and work your way up from there. Now, I'm not here to put my hat into the rink on this, but I will say this. I do conceal carry sometimes this little 22 Magnum revolver, and I also use it as a backup weapon. I've seen 22s out of a rifle drop a cow with one shot, dispatching the animal with one single little bitty round. These guns will kill, but for self-defense, most people will not recommend 22 caliber. My brother recently on his channel put out a great video of 22 versus 9mm. I suggest that you watch that. I'll leave a link in the description to it. However, 22 does suffer from one thing when you take away its anemic size and power. It has a very big flaw being rim-fired, which means when the To fire this bullet, the hammer or the firing pin must strike this cartridge on the very rim of the round in order to set it off. It's not center fired like your 45 or 9mm or even your 12 gauge or any of your bigger rifles out there. That is the drawback to having rim-fired ammunition. Like I say though, if you're new and you're just starting out, you can find great guns like the SIG that are chambered 9mm, 40, 45. What it really comes down to is your training with the weapon and how comfortable it feels in your hands. Like you can get this revolver, for example, chambered in the larger 357 or 44 Magnum. Well, maybe not this exact revolver, but ones that are pretty close to it. Double action revolvers. And of course, you can always get this in the aforementioned 45, 9mm, 380, 357 SIG. And yes, 357 SIG and 357 Magnum are two different bullets. And I know this is a lot to throw at you being a new person to gun ownership, but these are some of the things you should take into consideration when purchasing your first pistol or revolver. Alright guys, that's just some of the things I thought I'd throw your way today, and we'll see you down the road.